Hello Year 10, this is an ecology lesson. This is related to competition and interdependence, so looking at what we call predator-prey cycles. So the first thing I'm going to show you is the spec, and the particular bits that I'm interested in that I'd like you to read, please, are these. So I'll just highlight them. Okay, so here we go. So if you can have a quick read of this section, please. I suggest you pause. So the first thing we're going to look at is competition. So basically, to survive and reproduce, organisms need a supply of resources from their surroundings and from other living organisms. So the first thing we're going to look at is competition amongst plants. So if you remember when we did about photosynthesis, you'll know that plants need a good supply of sunlight. So that's the first thing that they're going to compete for, is sunlight. And then secondly, they're going to need space. So you're going to need space to be able to grow and get enough resources. And from below, they're going to need to get enough water and mineral ions. So to summarize, sunlight, water and mineral ions, and space. And they compete for those things. Whereas animals are going to compete for different types of things. So the first thing they're going to compete for is, if I just can write it here, is going to be food. So they might, as a species, compete with each other, or they might compete with other species for food. They'll also compete for mates. Okay, so here I've got a male bowerbird. So this is a male bowerbird, and it competes with other male bowerbirds for female birds by having bright plumage. And the brighter the plumage and the more kind of they actually dance around as well, then they're likely to get the mate. Another famous example is peacocks. So these are male peacocks, and again they will display their feathers and their colours to a potential female mate. Whereas other species, for example lions, they, when competing for mates, they will fight one another. So these are two male lions, and they'll be fighting for the female pride. The final thing that they will compete for is territory. So what I mean by territory is an area or zone within which they can protect those particular resources. So for example, food and mates, they will have their own territories. So giving you an example in your own back garden, for example, the robin. The robin has its own territory, and it will protect its territory from other robins. Okay, so what I'd like you to do now is write down what I've just talked about in terms of what do plants and animals compete for. So again, I'd like you to pause this video. And here are the answers. So just check your answers and add to them if you've forgotten anything. So many species are going to interact with each other within a community, and if one of those species is removed, then it will affect the whole community, and this is what we mean by interdependence. Now in a stable community, you'll have a balance between environmental factors and the population's competition that between species, and that remains relatively constant. And that brings us to the example of predator and prey species. So in this case we've got the moose. Okay, so this is a moose, okay, and this is a wolf, and they can both be found in northern parts of Northern America, Canada for example, and there's quite a famous kind of interaction between the two. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this simulation and try and explain it. Okay, so let's have a look. So the first thing is, I'll just explain this graph to you. On the left-hand side is the number of wolves, and on the right side the number of moose. And you'll notice that there's less predators and more prey. And I'll talk about that in a later video related to what we call pyramids of numbers and pyramids of biomass. But you always tend to have, well, you always have more prey than predators. And so the wolf population is in blue and the moose population is in red. So let me play a bit more. So what you can see is that the moose population increases significantly whilst the wolf population decreases. You'll then see a sharp decline in moose numbers and an increase in wolf numbers. And this continues on. Now, as you can see, the predator number is always lagged behind the number of prey. The reason being is this cycle it repeats itself, but you can see that moose numbers will increase when wolf numbers decrease because they've had a lack of food and therefore numbers are decreased. And then moose numbers decrease when the number of predators increase. And it keeps going in that cycle. Now this is an actual graph of real numbers, and this is in Isle Royal, an island in Lake Superior, and it shows the periodic increases in the moose population, quickly followed by an increase in the wolf population. As you can see, it's not as cyclical as the simulation, and that's because other factors might come to play. For example, there might be a really harsh winter that reduces the number of the moose, or there might be disease in different populations of moose or wolf that could also affect the population number. So here's another graph to show you, and it just shows a classic predator-prey graph. So as the prey increases, there's a larger food supply for the predator. So predator numbers then start to increase because more predators are surviving. And then the growing number of predators eventually reduces the food supply, and therefore they start to decrease. And as they decrease, the number of prey will start to increase once more, and this cycle begins again. Right, so hopefully you've looked at the whole video. I'm going to ask you some exam questions now. So when I show you the questions, what I would like you to do is on your computer is to pause, and I would like you to write down your answers. Okay, and then after you've written down your answers, press play, and then I will show you the mark scheme. Now it's really important though you do pause and you try to do the questions before moving on to the answers. Okay, first question, so just remember, pause please once this is out of the way. Okay, so if you pause now and have a go at these questions. So for these questions, you're going to use the graph to give a longer answer. Again, pause now, please. This next one is an exam style question. So remember to pause. There we go. Okay, good luck. This will take you a bit longer. This should take you about 5 to 10 minutes on this one. So I'm hoping you've had a go at those questions. Here are the answers. So you're going to have to pause to mark your work. And the exam style question. So again, pause and mark your work. Maybe use a green pen as well to show improvement. Hope you found that useful. Okay, so if you haven't already, please do subscribe to DrBiology, and there'll be more video courses coming soon.